Peace, love, and life, family. It's your girl, Morgan Renee Myers, tuning in for another reading of Complementarity, Thoughts for African Warrior Couples by M. Walamuke Bomani Baruti. So far, I have read chapters 1 through 4. Chapter 1 was complementarity. Chapter 2 was choices. Chapter 3 was trust. Chapter 4 was love and happiness. And right now, I am on, I don't know who this is calling, so I'm going to decline that and put my phone on mute. Okay. Love and happiness. So the chapters I'm going to focus on today are vision and marriage. We might get to marriage, but we're definitely going to read vision. So I'm going to just hop right into it. Each chapter starts off with a quote. So chapter 5, vision, the quote is, "A visionary aspect must appear in the relationship. The ability to plan for the future on the basis of a religious commitment to the Afrocentric worldview is the criterion of vision. Nothing can substitute for the visionary experience. It is the galvanizing element that keeps the relationship on track. To be able to ask, do you see, and be assured that your partner does see the same vision provides a sense of communion." This is already getting deep. If we don't have the same vision, we're not going to be very good in very good communication. When our styles of raising our children are going to be different, and it's just going to cause for a lot more issues than if we had talked about and see if our visions align. Commitment to a fundamental vision, a profound project, a spiritual quest is the king of commitment, which demonstrates vision. Relationships which are based on Afrocentric vision are never boring, dull, or without vitality. A visionary aspect to a relationship establishes a purpose outside of and beyond the daily considerations of living. The man and woman who dream together constitute the most advanced unit of an Afrocentric society. That quote is by Molifi Kitty Asante. All right, so Chapter 5, Vision. Therefore, being warriors in and against an alien, antagonistically competitive, selfishly individualistic culture and society, we cannot help but wonder what it takes for African complements to remain together. Trust and love are not enough by themselves. So, with the greater stress and strain on us than others because of the anti-African nature of the white supremacist environments we live in, how do we as a loving, conscious, heterosexual couples define, locate, and carve out a safe, sacred space within which we can exercise our power to benefit community and each other? How do we be and remain African complements without tearing each other apart as a result of being daily frustrated about being each other's targets? About being others' targets. We must carefully and thoroughly examine the odds. We must understand the magnitude of what we are doing, for we are trying to build African families, communities, and in turn an African nation in a global anti-African chaotic insanity. We are trying to regain our health, swimming around in a sea of disease. As scarred, broken, fragmented, untrusting Africans, we are trying to build what our ancestors were born into. Our ancestors were born whole in whole families and whole communities. They too had issues and disputes to settle among themselves, but had a spiritual and political framework within which to make sense of and resolve disagreement among family peacefully. Something keep getting up. Something coming through the vent, I think. Hold on. I think I kicked some rocks down there by accident. My little lamp that's over here had gravel in the bottom of it, and it broke and fell down near the vent, and I was sweeping and something went in there. I think it's getting in my nose. Oh, maybe it's this hair oil. Honey, Chap, I don't know, my nose sensitive right now. Okay, so I like where this is going, though. So pretty much, as African people living in the West, living in America, we have to deal with all these things that are really pitted against us to thrive and survive as healthy, whole African families. But we still have to get back to that. We have to get back to what our ancestors were already born into. So it said they too had issues and disputes to settle among themselves, but had a spiritual and political framework within which to make sense of and resolve disagreement among family peacefully. As in I.E. Quay Arma's description of our original mission, and here's a quote: the work of traditionalists was to look for the elements of chaos, gather them, and burn them. That was the small part of the work. The large part was to stay constantly on the lookout for the elements of cohesion, the way the healer looks for medicine, to gather them, nurture them, strengthen them, and to infuse their essence into society, strengthening it. So focusing on the positive more than a negative. We, on the other hand, are born into a world of dispute and mindless antagonistic aggression, and on top of that, are trying to build trust and family while Europeans continue to work with all their might to destroy us. Possibly even more importantly, as a measure of our menticidal contradictions, many of us even look at the European and Negro to design, arbitrate, and enforce solutions to their willful destruction of us. We look to disease for health. As complementary couples rising through insanity, we must remember that each of us has been socialized in a European cultural environment. That helps me be more empathetic toward family members, and just people that you're around, that you love. You just have to remember that, we're living in a state of insanity and a European cultural environment. And so the practices that I have, the community, what in the world? The community togetherness or unification that I value and I exude and I practice, those that, are maybe our blood or that I'm closest to, don't resonate or don't participate, and I just have to understand they're at where they're at, and all I can do is be a reflection and continue on my journey. But it brings me much joy, and I enjoy it, and I just want them to be a part and to get their life, because community be popping. As complementary couples rising through insanity, we must remember that each of us has been socialized in a European cultural environment. We each, therefore, come into intimate relationships with much European baggage, unwanted trappings, which weigh down our individual and united pursuit of the African way. And we must especially remember that this is no less so for African-centered individuals. We tend to forget this, expecting an African perfection in those as damaged as we are. However, we know that we must shed ourselves of this insanity in order to be our ancestors. We must work to remove the confusion of European culture layer by filthy layer. This is a lifelong process. While their obstacles may not have been as challenging, our ancestors understood that life was about striving for perfection. It was about earnestly working to become godlike. Contamination comes with the territory of being African in a European-dominated culture and society. We must learn to work with each other as couples as we intergenerationally shed ourselves of disease. We must see the African potential in our complements. We must be patient with them and ourselves as we strive to be African. So, as consciously believing, thinking, acting warrior scholars against all odds, we must recognize the phenomenal power inherent in our dogged perseverance. We are a strong, resilient people, and in knowing this, we cannot forget the African conception of time. We have always been, are now, and always will be. We are our ancestors and our descendants. With such remembrance, we know that we are all that ever was African. We are the culmination of spiritual genius. Therefore, we are undefeatable, even while confined to spaces occupied by our enemies. Even though constantly in the midst of their onslaught, even as we swim about in their insanity, we are re-Africanizing ourselves, in that we are the culmination of all the Africans who came before us. There is no greater evidence of African resilience and power. We are winning. Mama Nia said exactly. This is why I create rites of passage for young adults. And I think that's very important. Young adults need that. Hell, I need that. I was so upset a few years ago. I think I said you cap out at 26 and I had just turned 27. Honey, I still need a rite of passage. Our people's vision of an independently defined and wielded power of self-determination is fundamental to claiming this victory. Brother Lewis said, we are Aboriginal to America. We are not African. Okay, Brother Lewis, and I understand your argument, but there were some of us that came from Africa. I do believe that we were indigenous to this land as well, but I do also feel like some of us came from the continent of Africa, and the source of life started there. That's just my thoughts on it. But I get what you're saying. A lot of us were definitely already here, and this is already our land. The whole world is our land. For Pangea and all the splitting and seas and all of that. Our people's vision of an independently defined and wielded power of self-determination is fundamental to claiming this victory. But like all else from creation to destruction, the maturation and activation of an African interpretation of reality occurs at the level of the visionary complementary couple. In a revolutionary context, the purpose of intimate interpersonal relationships goes far beyond the wants and needs of the individuals making them up. Neither of the two individuals comprising the couple should hold his or her personal interests above that of the vision designed to strengthen and empower the African community. To be African is to be first person plural. Vision speaks to a people's liberating mission. Vision defines the wants and needs of its individuals' complements. It is because of this that the difficulties inherent in intimate interpersonal relationships do not shake the foundation upon which true complementarity rests. It is because of an African-centered vision that the intensified difficulty white supremacy brings individual warriors working to get along with each other does not stand in the way of our people's success. The problem, as already noted, is that very seldom in this reality do two people come together with the same understanding of our mission as warriors, as healers. You can't believe your enemy narrative of our history. I hear what you're saying, Brother Lewis, and we can agree to disagree. Okay, thank you. It is because of these difficulties. Okay. It is because of an African-centered vision that the intensified difficulty white supremacy brings individual warriors working to get along with each other does not stand in the way of our people's success. The problem, as already noted, is that very seldom in this reality do two people come together with the same understanding of our mission as warriors, as healers. Far too many Africans, the definition of African-centered is European or European-friendly. Fear and confusion contaminate our vision. In a world where argument and antagonism play such a central role in relationships, having a vision that is greater than the couple serves as immeasurable cementing mission. See, this is why I have the conversations I have about like my Man Mondays and my Women Wednesdays and Family Fridays, because and I say this all the time, so if you've been following for a while, you should know my spiel by now. As having been an educator in the school system as well as outside the school system, just looking at my own upbringing and things that I just didn't learn, that I'm figuring out now at about to be 29 in a few days. It's just like, do couples have these conversations, or do you just, the infatuation of you look good, or I like your personality, or you got money, or, the sex is good? Like, are we sitting down and talking about the vision? And because I hear marriage is really hard, and I know that to be true from what I can see. Are we making sure that even though we're individuals and we have our own goals, are we ever letting that supersede the vision for, our family and for our generations, for our community? Are we trying to get too big for our own britches, And I think that's I don't know. I think it could be challenging, but it can be very honest work that needs to be done with oneself. Because if you ever get off kilter or off track, your complement, your partner can kind of bring you back. And that also, I think, is what will keep people together. As many, one of my fears behind marriage is like the high divorce rate. And so part of me still don't know if, Lord, should I maybe be a free spirit and just, love those that love me, or like, does it really work out? Because I see so many people that have, multiple spouses and children at different points in their lives. And I understand that people grow and change, or are toxic, or have mental health issues. So sometimes I just really wonder, like, is it meant for people to stick together for eternity? But I feel like just reading this, having a vision will make you more likely to stay together than breaking apart, because we understood what our agreement and our commitment was when we came together. So I think I do kind of value that, and I think that is what I would prefer to have, but we'll see how it goes. So each complement must be wise enough to measure future compatibility of the other's vision based on their past and current desire and movement toward progression, revolutionary African change. As the vision of complements fully converge, the role they play for each other in actively fulfilling their mission as nation builders becomes more interactive. For individuals and complementary couples, For individuals and complementary couples motivate each other by example. When one is working hard, the other is motivated to do likewise. And this is why I cannot get with the bums and the guys that just always look up to me, or especially the ones that's like online. They just want to talk about how pretty you are all day. Like, what can you bring to the table? What can we talk about? How are you mentally stimulating me? Are you teaching me anything? Are we having any conversations of value, or is it, just the same thing? Like, some brothers, all they know to do is they want to get up, wake up, get on the technology first thing in the morning. A lot of drinking and smoking and gluttony and just stuff that I'm not focused on right now. Like, my path has to do with my health and my wellness, and I could use a motivator to get in the gym. Like, I like to dance, but I'm not always going to a dance class, but I do have a gym membership that is not being used like it should. So I'm doing all this mental and spiritual and physical detoxing, but I need to get that physical movement in. If I had a king around to be like, yo, you ain't been to the gym in a while, or like, let's go together, that would really, like, I have to be motivated on my own. I shouldn't depend on or wait on somebody to do that for me. But I'm just saying it would be helpful. And that's what I feel like your partner should be helping you grow. So when guys approach me and I off gate see that we're not in alignment in quite a few areas, and I will be doing most of the motivating and inspiring, I don't need that. I don't need a fan as my man, okay? I need a brother that can come with his own knowledge and power and strength and motivation, and we can build together. So that was the end of chapter 5, vision. So these chapters are really short. I'm going to move on to chapter 6, which is talking about marriage. This quote is by Ptahhotep. When you prosper and establish your home, love your wife with ardor, then fill her belly and clothe her back, caress her, give her ointments to soothe her body. Where they do that at? Fulfill her wishes for as long as you live. She is a fertile field for her husband. Do not be brutal. Good manners will influence her better than force. Do not contend with her in the courts. Keep her from the need to resort to outside powers. Keep her from putting your ass on child support. Okay? Be involved in your kid's life if it don't work out. Her eye is her storm when she gazes. It is by such treatment that she will be compelled to stay in your home. That is beautiful. What Mama Nia say? We are the original people, period. Ad, by the way, means not original. So either way, whether we call ourselves African or you call yourself indigenous, we are the creators. I would have to agree with Sister Morgan. Peace and love, Mama Nia. I like you. Okay. Yeah, whatever you want to call it, we are the original people, period. It's not up for discussion. No matter which land we came from, where we traversed, who brought us here, if they did, if they didn't. We the original. We everywhere. We can't be stopped. And once we understand that and use our power together, that's why they want to hold us back. That's why they tell us lies about our history. That's why they put liquor stores and gun shops in our communities and all that. I was just watching Boys in the Hood last night. I had never seen it all the way through. And I like how it was written. I appreciate rested love and light and power to Brother John Singleton, who has transitioned this year, for being the writer and director of that. I really enjoy how he put, and that's what's important too. Like, as creatives, we control the narrative. And I don't think everything has to be on a universal Hollywood scale. Like, the work that me, myself, and other people in my community do, we're powerful. Everybody might not know about us, but we're impacting those that are directly around us and in our community. And if that happens to get seen, from other people or across the world, great. But I feel like we control our narrative, so we don't have to be on these big networks. A lot of them people that's watching These shows probably ain't even on that wavelength, no way. They'll just be caught up in it by seeing it and might hop on board. But I feel like controlling the narrative is important. So I appreciate what John Singleton did in Boys in the Hood, where he was speaking on, like, not killing your brother. Although there was violence in it, one of the main characters, Trey, father Lawrence Fishburne, was able to teach him, to not, don't kill your brother. Like, we gotta stick together. If anything, we gotta support one another. And I like that. All right, so where we at? Chapter 6, marriage. Without marriage, there is no true family, extended or otherwise. There's no protection of the children or parents from the pain of loss or abuse. There's no unity of purpose, no concerted effort to thrive and build more than what one could do alone. Without marriage, all that exists is collections of fragmented individuals frantically searching for what they have misdefined as love and happiness from whoever or whatever crosses their path. In our tradition, marriage brings together more than two individuals. Marriage was not simply the uniting of two individuals for life. It was the bringing together of two families, two communities, which is why my mother always said you got to be careful who you marry, because you marry their family, like whoever come with them. And so there were guys that she couldn't date because their family was ghetto or whatever. But I know that to be true. And there have been people that I've been crushing on, and I feel like I was not their type based on the trauma and disconnectedness of my family. That's just my opinion. It may not be. They might just didn't vibe with me like that. But I thought that might have been a reason why they were a little turned off, because they knew they would have to deal with that, and they came from pretty good stock. So I don't even blame them. But that's what I do desire to, change the narrative within my own lineage. And just be patient and gentle with those that I am related to. Smakuz said there are accounts and records. Y'all still talking about this? From our actual ancestors who endured and survived the horrors of the Atlantic slave trade. We are Africans, and African traveled and migrated to lands long before the Columbus murder stories and the first slave ships were created. Just wanted to share this. Absolutely, sis. And we were all over traveling to the Caribbean. Yes. In our tradition, marriage brings together more than two individuals. Marriage was not simply the uniting of two individuals for life. It was the bringing together of two families, two communities. Every action between individuals, formal and otherwise, was designed to pull people together. Traditionally, Africans see marriage as a highly valued and honor-giving duty, a social responsibility. It is not, as so many of us steeped in this selfish Western individualism believe, seen as taking away from one's freedom or a self-gratifying outlet by which individuals can find and express themselves. It was, and for many, retaining and returning to our traditions remains the best possible expression of respect of self and the Creator. Marriage is the means by which we exercise our right to grow as individuals through intimate interaction. Yes, I do believe partnership is for growth. Absolutely, 100%. And if you're not looking to grow and evolve and be challenged, then marriage may not be for you. And I get what this author is saying, but I don't think marriage is for everybody, especially if they're not taking the steps that he's talking about earlier in this book. With not being desperate, with not being, not choosing partners based off lust, having trust and vision. If you're not even on that wavelength, it would probably not be wise for you to get married, because it probably wouldn't work out for you, because that's not your mindset is not geared on that, or the purpose of marriage and what's to come out of it. Cause they keep transitioning minds and changing the paradigms. Love you. I just got here. I read that comment. It was okay. Yeah. All right. So in our tradition, marriage brings together more than two individuals. I keep reading that. Marriage was not simply the uniting of two individuals for life. It was the bringing together of two families, two communities. Every action between individuals, formal and otherwise, was designed to pull people together. Traditionally, Africans see marriage as a highly valued and honor-giving duty and social responsibility. It is not, as so many of us steeped in this selfish Western individualism believe, seen as taking away from one's freedom or a self-gratifying outlet by which individuals can find and express themselves. It was, and for many, retaining and returning to our traditions remains the best possible expression of respect of self and the Creator. Marriage is the means by which we exercise our right to grow as individuals through intimate interaction. It offers willing, dedicated participants the privilege of expressing our talents more powerfully through working with another to produce an even greater product than ourselves. It is the most logical, socially agreed upon tradition by which we can become better than our individual selves. Through it, we share all that we have with someone else in order to produce things that we can never do alone. Within it, we bring forth new life, new creativity. Marriage to Africans is a sacred institution. At the most individual of levels, it is a sacred agreement between two individuals representing two communities with the Creator. Unlike in Western society, where community is not a consideration in these legal relationships and extreme individualism regulates choices and separation and divorce, matrimonial vows are understood as inviolable and therefore considered unbreakable except under extreme circumstances. You do not lie to the Creator. The individualistic mentality of sex and play that dominates the mind of Europeans and their cultural clones makes serious, lasting marriage a virtual impossibility without a tolerance based on the need of two individuals to meet certain economic standards which they cannot maintain alone. Although it is only one of many causes, as more and more individuals have become able to maintain the middle class lifestyle for themselves by themselves, the need for marriage has naturally declined. Sex and play have also increased accordingly. A life of sex and play is incompatible with marriage because a serious, successful relationship between complements often requires difficult struggle. And in a world where instant gratification is glorified and struggle disdained, no matter its long-term rewards, it is understandable that more and more of our youth do not want to take on the responsibility of African adulthood. Long ago, Ptahhotep warned us that if you are one who fails through the lust of women, then no affair of yours can prosper. If sex is your predominant preoccupation, failure is bound to occur over and over again in your life. But know this, the extreme preoccupation with sexual conquest, promoted and normalized as natural by Western culture's sex imperative, is the primary cause of this lack of maturity. It is not a naturally occurring phenomenon among all people. Cheating is not a natural inclination among men or women for the world's majority. It is not in our blood, as many confused rationalizers believe. We are neither dogs nor bitches. We are not animals in constant heat. These are socialized conditions. Therefore, we are only becoming so because we have been culturally misoriented away from African tradition and toward the European way, and as a result are modeling our sexual appetite after the world's morally uncivilized minority. Predatory sexual behavior, a mentality which marriage cannot pacify or suppress and in Western society was never designed to, is part and parcel of the European sex imperative. It is a mentality which has no place in the African tradition. However, it has found its way into the African mind because we are constantly and systematically bombarded by imagery and definitions promoting a European reality. We become like those who are unable to distinguish right from wrong, or rather, we are learning wrong along with how to make wrong appear right, reducing us to a state of wrong thinking so that we can be controlled within their cultural framework is the goal. Our confusion can lead us to no longer see Europeans as abnormal because it causes us to think and act distorted like them. Because we are the majority, once we become abnormal, they become normal. Mama Nia says, yes, Sister Morgan, stay on point. Yes, we love on one another and talk about the centeredness of being indigenous people. We share this with our children. We show our children the good and bad of our marriage. We show affection so that the children will understand how to love on each other and one day their mates, for sure. Marriage would definitely grow your ass. Grateful I have been married for 18 years and together for 23 years. Wow. Yes. Baba Baruti is the bomb. I brought him here for Kwanzaa one time and had very little folks showed up. Oh, no, not very little folks showed up. Oh, man. They just don't know what they don't know, sis. And a lot of people don't feel like being lectured to, I feel like if you're not conscious enough to like be seeking information or elevation or stuff about your people, your ancestors and your past, if you're just really one of those kind of let me wake up, pay my bills, live my life, stay at home type of people, this, seeing someone like Baba would not interest you. Also, everybody I feel like has their path, and so I guess information will come to them and they will receive it or be open to it when they are ready. And if they never get ready or just aren't into it, then you know how it go. In this light, and this light alone, we must consider the impact of an alien and anti-African socialization on the African sense of fidelity. When we are taught to be predators and any of the most important indicators of power, hold on, let me see what Ken was saying. Well, it's well documented that previous to marriage in ancient Egypt, people freely had sex and sexuality was largely unrestricted. Okay. Two sides of these coin, honey. When we are taught to be predators and any of the most important indicators of power in a devoutly power hungry social environment, we become predators in all things. All our behavior becomes infected with a predatory mentality. In those with culturally disconnected and weakened psychological immune systems, social disease spreads with ease. The global nature of our menticide is why sexual predation is becoming pandemic among Africans and other non-Europeans. Whether sex is the first or last indicator of power in which we learn to be predatory is irrelevant. In which we learn to be predatory in is irrelevant. In molding ourselves into the European predatory personality, we make it a constant and insatiable appetite for our energies, and he who is ruled by his appetite belongs to the enemy. Whether they are acted out consciously or not, we cannot blame animal instincts for these choices because they are a normal part of the predatory mentality we have been socialized into. In some, a rapidly growing some, we can even attribute these misguided choices to an absolute ignorance of morality, of not knowing what is right and wrong in relationships. So many of us have been socialized without this sense of moral decency toward each other that it never occurs to us that these thoughts and acts are wrong. Those Africans who blindly follow the European way just do not know they are wrong in their sexually predatory thought and behavior. Like many of today's youth, they are shocked to have their sexual perversions and excesses questioned and defined as abnormal because they were never taught differently. Know our story. They think that what they experience as normal today was the way it has always been for us. Many, of course, are simply confused about even whether they were African. Too many of us no longer even consider corruptions like infidelity and homosexuality issues of immorality or additional evidence of our ongoing maafa. For we do not recognize that others have brought us into this way of thinking. But when we know and continue to act as if in ignorance, there are consequences. We are not the same. We are not Europeans. To see the truth in the statement that there are real, meaningful, and irreconcilable differences between the African and European senses of, for example, fidelity among intimates, all we need to do is compare adultery's pervasiveness and level of normative acceptability among us and them throughout time. All we need to do is look at our story and his story. Yes, cheating is to be found among all people, as is murder and theft. In general, as humans, we are imperfect. We make mistakes. Otherwise, there will be no reason for birth into this plane. There will be no struggle to transform ourselves into persons worthy of ascension into a higher spiritual union. So, since we both exist on this plane and neither of us is absolutely perfect, wherein does the difference lie? The real difference between us and them, which speaks to spirit and normative behavior, is that cheating, deceit, and lying has always been a common practice among Europeans and an extreme abnormality amongst Africans. Because Europeans define moral weakness as an incurable human quality, they embrace their ungoverned and relentless pursuit of mistakes as natural as innate original sin. And to appear righteous, they had their science and religion redefine morality as an individual prerogative. We did not. We are not God-vying. We do not question universal order. The difference between us and them is as obvious as the difference between cooperation and competition, between xenophilia and xenophobia, between what is natural and what is perverted. And on this point, do not be confused by the rhetoric of their political science. We do not constrain our behavior into a form respecting of the family institution because we were individually so socially suppressed by the group that we were not able to fully express ourselves as individual sexual beings. To make themselves appear normal, this is what the universalizing theories of popular Western scholarship would have us believe. We did not do this because traditional African society crushed our sense of individualism. We did this because as individuals determined to build a moral society, we sought control from within. We were not a people who believed that you could hide your transgressions or that your sins were not sins unless you were caught. We understood ourselves as an inseparable part of the Creator, and what we did was known to all creation. Our life was our religion, and we came to know the Creator through what we did. Our deep sense of morality, of Mayat, was reflected everywhere in our every thought and practice. In meaningful contrast, a study of their mythical gods, a people's mythology being a reflection of their personality and desires, and a people's desires are what they model themselves after, shows that adultery was everyday behavior. A number of their gods and goddesses were philanderers, as above, so below. So those westernized individuals who worship sex should not be confused into believing that the infatuation that leads to Western marriage will last. Infatuation by its very nature is short-lived. Reckless eyeballing does not cease because of marriage. Lust is a trained response that can be a more difficult reaction to break than drug or alcohol addictions because members of the complementary sex constantly remain in view. One can remove oneself from drug or alcohol-infested settings, but isolation from the complementary sex, along with the images, language, sounds, music, situations, and symbols that arouse one's sexual appetite, calls for extreme, unnatural, and often virtually impossible sacrifices. If one has the deeply developed habit of constantly scouring the surroundings for fresh meat, urged on by the cultural imperative that pushes us to constantly seek out anything new and different to conquer, then there will always be new sights and temptations to explore. Common sense should tell us that a fornicator is not choosy. At the same time, jealousy, the spoiled offspring of mistrust and envy, must not come between the complements. The ancestors have told us that any man who does not want other men to look at his wife should not get married. You have married beauty. People will forever look for the right and wrong reasons. And know that this male-focused discussion does not take sisters off the hook for encouraging and engaging in the excessive and perverted behaviors of males. Sexual obsession among Africans is hot pursuit of the European sexual imperative is in no way solely the domain of African men. The exchange of sex for romance and vice versa equally involves the female and the male respectively. Remember, as one is walking, so she is met. Be that as it may, for African men, true African men following in the footsteps of their ancestors, African women are to be honored. Because there are too many to count, we should not need a reason to give this honor freely. They are mothers, our first teachers, the ones who will unqualifiedly love us when all others fail us. Given an uncorrupted cultural framework, African women nurture. It is an admirable spiritual quality. Females are our primary nurturers. This is not a point of debate or contention between men and women in a social environment naturally modeled after the rhythm of the universe. Why would we select Urugu's sexist, misogynistic misinterpretation of all women over the tens of thousands of years of study and practice which evolved into the traditions of our African ancestors? Our ancestors knew women as the creator, spirit, Mother Earth, as our natural ultimate nurturers, as first teachers. And we knew this for some reasons than just that they gave birth and nursed our babies. Invidious sex and gender distinctions had no place or value in a reality based on balance, in the division of labor based on spiritual, sometimes manifest physically qualities. What men were better at did not elevate them above women socially, politically, intimately, or otherwise. What women were better at did not make them into a Western-defined, domineering matriarchy determined to abusively rule over men and make them feel that their roles and responsibilities were less than those of women. What men and women excelled at equally found balance through cooperation, not competitiveness. There was a complementarity based order in male and female male and female relationships. Regardless, gender was not a source of antagonism between African women and men. That is European inheritance. We know that women are different than men. We do not learn this in gender. We do not learn what we do not learn in this gender confusing, antagonism generating, opposite attracting culture is what are the meaningful differences between us. The one which seems to go over most of our heads, and which is most important for our discussion here, has to do with how women and men go about addressing problems. There will always be problems. And when these difficulties arise, women gravitate toward discussion to hash out all possible angles of a problem, while men tend to pursue direct and immediate action. And this does not mean that women talk or gossip more than men, or that talking is not action. It only means that in circumstances with questions, women tend to want to verbalize their concerns so that they can see and understand them better. One could almost compare the approaches used in solving problems as women discuss and then act, while men act and then talk. There are advantages and disadvantages to either approach. Combined, they become most effective in solving our problems. This critical difference needs to be understood by both the man and woman in a complementary relationship, or they will find themselves at first puzzled and, with time, irritated by the other sex's decision-making behavior. This predisposition to immediately act aggressively against an enemy outside one's domicile is what mentally makes men such good physical warriors for our community's perimeters. However, this aggression has no place in the home. A woman is a flower in a garden. Her husband is the fence around it. Fences protect. They do not destroy what they envelop. As we know, there's nothing more dangerous and destructive in a household than a frustrated, oppressed black man. Physical violence by either male or female does not belong in the African home. Leave aggression outside. Vent on your proven enemies. Bravery is exhibited at the battlefront, but not at home. Problems should bring mates together, not push them farther apart. In many cases, the struggle to find lasting solutions to any significant interpersonal difference, if dealt with as if the problem is simply an obstacle to the more highly desired goal of complementarity, creases additional space for healing discussions later when other, possibly even more troublesome disruptions upset the relationship. So that was chapters 5 and 6. I usually have just been doing 2 a day. I think I'm going to stop there. Yeah, I'm going to stop there and pick up on chapter 7 with sex tomorrow. But yeah, I appreciate y'all for tuning in, and this will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, Complementarity, Thoughts for African Warrior Couples. Peace, guys.